Can you briefly explain what the role of Office of the Special Trial Counsel looks like as a judge advocate?
The Office of the Special Trial Counsel, or we call it OSTIC, was created by Congress on recommendation of an independent review commission, which was looking at the handling of certain cases, most notably sexual assault and rape cases. And so they created the Office of the Special Trial Counsel, which is the referral authority for covered offenses. And those covered offenses, in frequency of reports that I personally see out of this command, the two most common cases that are referred to the Office of the Special Trial Counsel by law are the sexual assault cases and domestic violence cases. So those are two covered offenses in the Manual for Courts-Martial, the UCMJ. Those types of cases are sent for review by the OSTIC, and those specially qualified and certified OSTIC attorneys will look at the case, and they will make the decision of whether are we going to take this case forward or are we going to defer it back to the command for administrative action. So those attorneys are making decisions about charging or not charging cases, whereas the commanding officers, before the OSTIC came out, it was the commanding officer that made that decision. So the OSTIC, like I said, are especially certified, qualified attorneys that have experience and training in those types of case law areas where they can make those decisions. And that system's been out for a little bit over a year and a half now. And the OSTIC has been taking a lot of cases. I think they had more work than they were expecting to have. So counsel that are in the trial services organization, so prosecutors, are being pulled in to learn from OSTIC and eventually work for OSTIC.
Okay. And while we're kind of on this topic, I know you hit victims legal counsel a little bit before, but could you dive into what role the victims legal counsel plays and the type of advocacy or the type of Marines that they advocate for?
Yes. So the VLC organization was also created by statute, and certain victims, or as we say in the defense side, complaining witness or alleged victim, they are entitled to representation by counsel, and those counsel are the VLC counsel, and they are a point of contact for the victim to answer any legal questions. So to explain the process, to explain the victim's rights, most importantly. What do you have the right to do? What do you have the right not to do? Do you want to participate? Do you want to not participate? And so for a prosecutor that's trying to determine whether a witness is going to be participatory at a certain forum, whether it be court-martial, at ADSEP, they can go through an attorney, and for the crime victim or the purported crime victim, they have an attorney who's representing their interests and explaining things to them that VLC works for the victim. And the VLC can come to court if the case goes to court-martial, and the VLC can file certain motions and make certain arguments in accordance with the Manual for Courts-Martial. But it's an important thing for all parties involved, for victims of crime to have representation, so they can understand the process, and also so that the trial counsel and the command or the OSTIC can understand what the victim's preferences are and how the victim can and wants to participate.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining that. All right. And then second to last question in terms of roles in the Marine Corps, what kind of appellate work is done in the Marine Corps?
So there are two levels of appeals in the Marine Corps. We have the trial court level, which is here the Western Judicial Circuit. Then there's the East, and we have out in Indo-PACOM as well. And so the cases that are being taken to trial in the trial court level, at the trial court level, can and in certain cases are required to be appealed up to the Navy and Marine Corps Court of Criminal Appeals, the NMCCA. And there are counsel that work in those courts to handle those cases, to handle those appeals. And a big concern on both sides, more on the trial side and in the judiciary at the trial court level, is being able to protect a case on appeal. So ensuring that there's as little as possible error in the proceedings at the trial court level, so that there's not grounds to overturn the case, And then on the defense side, the number one thing we don't want to do is to give our client, we want to give them every opportunity to appeal except for ineffective assistance of counsel. So if you're defense counsel, you obviously if you're accused of a crime, you rate defense counsel in the Marine Corps. You're entitled to defense counsel. You have the right to an attorney, and you have the right that attorney be competent and be effective. So if the attorney is deemed ineffective by the appellate court, the Marine may rate another trial or some other remedy fashioned by the appellate court. So as defense counsel, we're trying to not be ineffective, and we're trying to do everything that we can, because that's the way that the system works. That's the way it has to work in order to have confidence in convictions, is that the Marine accused had every opportunity to have an effective defense, and that even despite that, they were convicted at the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. So there are attorneys, some of the ones that I went to NJS with, to Naval Justice School, called me up and said, hey, I got one of your cases on appeal. Can you put me in touch with your client, or can you answer these questions? And so I think that's an exciting level for them. I don't know anyone that works at the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces, but that is essentially the Supreme Court in the military. So that second level of appellate work, where cases from all the services can be appealed up to what we call the CAF. And CAF cases, a CAF case for the Air Force, in an Air Force case, is binding authority on the Navy Marine Corps Court of Criminal Appeals and the Marine Corps trial judiciary. So we read those cases, we research those cases, we refer to them, and use them as authority when we're making arguments and motions in the trial court.
Awesome, thank you. And then finally, what roles can judge advocates that are similar to those of an in-house counsel or general counsel?
So that's what I'm doing now. I'm the Deputy Staff Judge Advocate here for the Recruit Depot in San Diego. And we give legal advice. It's essentially legal compliance. We're making sure that the command is, and everyone in the command is within the guidelines of every piece of authority that applies to us, which is a lot of different things, whether it be federal law, whether it's Department of Defense instructions, Secretary of Defense instructions, Secretary of the Navy instructions, manuals, so the manual for the Judge Advocate General, Marine Corps orders, codes of federal regulation, various white papers, guidance, the DoD Standards of Conduct Office. There are a ton of different patchwork of regulations and different authorities that we're required to either be familiar with or become familiar with when the situation arises. And so, yeah, an SJA is like an in-house counsel for a command. And like I said before, we give military justice advice, which is a slice of the SJA's portfolio. Here we manage the FOIA program, which is the Freedom of Information Act request. So anyone that wants information from the government and is not entitled to that as part of their official role, we'll send a FOIA request. So we get a lot of media inquiries here. And the government ethics program is a big piece of our portfolio. There are ethical disclosures that need to be filed by certain people. Some of them are public, some of them are non-public. The one public filer we have here is the Commanding General, so he has an OGE, Office of Government Ethics Form 278 that he is required to file every year, and certain transaction reports. So we manage that ethics program, so ethics training for him, for his staff, for the other commanders, and for the other, whether they be just federal government employees or uniform members or non-uniform members. Almost everybody on this base is impacted in some way by the ethics program. And in addition to that, I'm personally involved with a lot of recruit training, but we give legal training to a number of different groups. Recruits here that are coming through the Recruit Depot and are joining the Marine Corps. So on training day 2, in their second week here on the depot, they get legal training on the UCMJ and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do and what the consequences of that could be. And also we give training to the recruiters who are going through school here, and also every command that falls under the general here gets legal training at some point.
Awesome. All right, and then what for the more adventurous type? I know you're out pursuing your private pilot's license and doing God knows what else. I don't know where you're finding the time to do that. But for the more adventurous type, what opportunities are there for deployments, being stationed overseas, that kind of thing for judge advocates?
So that's what recruited me, and that's what I love about the Marine Corps is, in addition to the required training, which was an absolute blast at the basic school and the basic officer course, shooting machine guns, throwing grenades, calling in artillery, integrating with aviation, all those fun things that we were required to do. I've had the opportunity to go to so many different courses and trainings out in the fleet that you could not replicate or get in the civilian world. I've been to the martial arts instructor course, the martial arts instructor trainer course, where we do all kinds of both weapons-based and hand-to-hand combat, both solo in small groups and involving all sorts of different weapons. I went to the Marine Corps Instructor of Water Survival course, which is basically a lifeguard course on steroids, where you're doing beachfront rescues, you're doing pool rescues, Marine Corps rescues, so you're swimming in boots and with Kevlar vests on and helmets, and learning how to rescue other Marines and perform CPR and deal with Marines that may have had head or spine injuries in the pool. And yeah, I've been to the Helo Dunker, so something that's near and dear to your community, twice, which is awesome. So that's the Helo Dunker is a training to make sure that you can egress out of a helicopter if you're going to be in a role where you're going to be deployed and potentially a passenger in a helicopter that's going to fly over water. That to me was highly useful training, like a life skill to be able to get out of a metal tube if it falls in the water. And then, yeah, you asked about deployments. The deployment opportunities have expanded greatly, even though you would think combat operations have died down from the War on Terror, but I had the opportunity to deploy out to Djibouti, Africa, Camp Lemonnier, so supporting the Combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa in the AFRICOM area of responsibility, and that was a great time. It was tons of operational law, international law, where we were dealing in some form or fashion with the 53 countries in Africa that we had cognizance over. So my general, I had a general that I worked for and an admiral. They were interacting with those African governments on various different levels, and also the embassies that are guarded by Marines all throughout Africa. And while I was out there, the Marine Corps sent me to Germany and to Paris on the way out. So I got some a little bit of tourist time on my way out there, and then during non-working hours, I went to Lake Assal, which is a salt lake that you can float in, and I actually got to go snorkeling. It was the right season to see the whale sharks out in the Red Sea, and so that was a great time. A once in a lifetime experience to be out in Africa and swimming in the Red Sea and flying over Somalia and being in the desert and just kind of learning what the world is like. I had never been to Africa before, and that was a great experience. And the judge advocate community is finding itself being asked to support various deployments, and those deployments, much more so now than when I was a junior lieutenant and junior captain, are being transparently made available to all company grade officers and field, whatever the deployed unit is looking for support. Emails are going out on a monthly or more than a monthly basis saying, hey, we've got task force such and such is asking for an 03, so a captain, or they're looking for a senior major, or they're looking for 4 captains. And so, over the past few months, emails have gone out about the Philippines, Italy, East Coast, so Virginia, Norway, other places that are classified or not specified. And yeah, I've had the opportunity to go on some of those. I've chosen to not do that because I'm about to go back into the recruit training regiment and assist with training recruits. So this is a very long-winded answer, but last summer I was a series commander, so I supervised the training of 645 basically trained Marines and the 15 drill instructors in my series that were responsible for training those Marines. And that was a rewarding experience that you don't get in the other services. You can't get them in the other services, and you certainly can't get them working at a civilian law firm.
And for those who don't know, what you're speaking of is the unrestricted officer role of a judge advocate in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps trains its judge advocates to go to all the same trainings as everyone else, so they can take on those leadership roles that don't pertain to the law. And that's what's unique about the Marine Corps. So for those who didn't know that, a little nugget there. And you said, how long were you doing that for?
One cycle and then one partial cycle. So in the summer, obviously, we have the bulk of our high school graduates coming in. Mm-hmm. So we had a full-size company, 645 recruits. And then I did a little bit with the next company before I rotated back here to the SJ office full-time.
Awesome. Probably a nice little break, too, from the law life.
A little bit, yeah.
I don't know if I'd call that a break. You probably were very busy, but a good experience, I'm sure, nonetheless.
Absolutely, yes. We took civilians that came in here with long hair and some of them on the edge of the physical standards, and got to see them from day one, and then watched them and actually marched across the parade deck with them on graduation day and saw them meet their families as newly trained Marines, thoroughly indoctrinated in love of corps and country.
Awesome.